In this video, I'm going to talk about database mirroring in SQL Server 2008 R2. Database mirroring is primarily used for high availability. It is also used for disaster recovery purposes. Sometimes it is called as real-time log shipping, but I would say it is actually a combination of log shipping and replication. Basically, this is what it is. Database mirroring is a log shipping plus replication minus some of the issues with log shipping and replication. Okay, let me explain what it is. In the database mirroring session, you will have three servers. One is principal, another one is mirror, and the third one is witness server. Okay, so basically you create the database mirroring session involving these servers. Okay, so you will have the database in the principal server. This is the database for the application server. Okay, so here you'll have the application server. This connects to the database in the principal server. Okay, this is the database for the application. Okay, so the application inserts the transactions into the principal database. Okay, so you will have the you will create a backup and copy the backup onto the mirror server. So this is a backup copy of the database on the mirror server. Okay, so whenever application inserts the records into the principal database, the records will be copied over to the mirror server. Okay, so your witness server, it just monitors these two servers. Basically, it creates a quorum like how we have in clustering. So basically, it creates a quorum and makes sure the principal is available. If the principal goes down for some reason, then witness server will fail over the database services to the mirror server and make the mirror server as a principal server. Okay, so if principal server goes down, so your mirror server will be new principal server. Okay, now the application server will connect to the new principal server. Okay, so this is what typically a high availability. In case if the principal server goes down, so it will take very less time to fail over the database onto the mirror server, and your mirror server will become new principal server and start processing the request. Okay, this is what the high availability. And the disaster recovery scenarios is, for example, you have the principal in one data center, Atlanta data center, let us say, and you have the mirror server in another data center, which is in New Jersey, let us say. Okay, so if the data center goes down, something happens, so you'll have the hard standby in the mirror server. Okay, in that scenarios, your database mirroring will be used as a disaster recovery. Let us talk about database mirroring mechanism. You have the principal server and mirror server, witness server. Okay, you have the database in principal server. You take the backup copy of the database in principal server and restore it on the mirror server with no recovery option. okay, and set up the database mirroring session having this server as a witness server. Okay, this is the typical scenario of the database mirroring. Okay, so you will have the application server here and it connects to the database in the principal server. This is the database for the application server. Okay, so when the application server, when it inserts the records, when it creates the transactions into the principal database, it first writes the records into the log buffer here on the principal server. Okay, so the records in the log buffer will get written into the log file. It will get written into the log file here. Okay, before it writes the records into the log file, it sends the records from the log buffer memory to the from here to the mirror server. This is another thread, asynchronous thread. Okay, so here it writes the records into the log buffer here, log buffer on the mirror server. From log buffer, it writes to the log files onto the mirror server. Okay, before hardening the log records on the mirror server, it sends the acknowledgement that it received the transaction, the log record from the principal server. It sends the acknowledgement to the mirror server saying that I receive the transaction log record has made to the mirror server. Okay, and after that, the principal server sends the acknowledgement back to the application server saying that your transaction is successful. Until that time, the principal server will be waiting. Basically, when a transaction comes to the principal server, the transaction will be written to the principal server, and after that it returns to the mirror server, and after that it goes back to the user saying that your transaction is successful. Basically, it has to write the log records into the both servers. You can set up the database mirroring session in one of the three operating modes: high availability, high safety, high performance. In high availability mode, in this session, you need three servers: principal server, mirror server, and witness server. Okay, so when application server connects to the database in the principal server, and when it inserts the records, the transaction into the principal database, the transaction will be first written into the log file on the principal database, and then it sends the log record to the mirror server, and it returns to the log file on the mirror database, and then it sends the acknowledgement back to the principal server saying that it received the log record. Okay, and principal server sends commits the transaction to the application server. So here there will be some latency because the transaction has to be written to the principal server first and then to the mirror server, and then it commits the transaction back to the application server. Okay, so there will be some latency because it has to commit the records in both the places. So it would be better both the servers to be in the same domain, in the same data center, same location. Otherwise, if two are separated and there is a network latency or some issue between the servers, then the record will be returned to the mirror server and there will be some delay. Okay, so that could be a reason why many people might not go for this, but this is the high availability method. Okay, so the role of witness is if principal server goes down, then the mirror server will take over the database services and start processing the request. Okay, so when there is a witness server, then it forms a quorum like how we have in clustering. Okay, so basically if principal server goes down, the witness and mirror pings the principal server, and based on the two votes like in the quorum, and it decides and takes over the failover the services to the mirror server. So it does automatically. This is what is called as automatic failover. Okay, the automatic failover happens only in high availability operating mode. Okay, so the application server in the application server connection string, you will have the server name. Okay, you will specify the principal server name, and you will have the option to specify the failover partner in the application connection string. Okay, if there is a failover partner, and if application server cannot connect to the principal server, it pings 1 or 2 times, and if it cannot connect, then it tries to connect to the failover partner server, which is a mirror server. Okay, and if the mirror server is processing is the new principal server, then application server will connect to the new principal server. Okay, the old mirror server. Okay, and it starts processing the database request. Okay, this is what is called as client redirection. In the application server automatically redirects the client to the mirror server and to work with database. In the high availability mode, there will be zero data loss, because when a transaction is written to the principal server, it will be also written to the mirror server. Okay, so whatever the state of the database in the principal server, so it will be the same on the mirror server. In the high safety operating mode, you don't need witness server. You basically create the database mirroring session using the principal and mirror server. Okay, so there is no quorum. If there is no witness server, there is no quorum. Okay, so there is no quorum, there is no automatic failover in high safety operating mode. Okay, so if principal server goes down, then the database is not available. Okay, so you'll still have the hot standby in the mirror server, but that will not come up. Okay, if principal server goes down, then you cannot do a manual failover, because you have to force the service on the mirror server to make the database available for the application server. Okay, in this operating mode, high safety operating mode, the mechanism is same. When the transaction comes to the principal database, it returns to the principal database first, and then it sends the records to the mirror server. It writes the record into the log file here, and then sends the acknowledgement back to the principal server, and principal server to the application server. The mechanism is same. The only difference is, as I said before, there is no automatic failover. Okay, yeah, that is the pretty much difference between the high safety and high availability operating mode. Okay, so if there is a problem with principal server, so you have to manually bring the mirror database to make it available for the application server. Okay, the manual intervention is required. In the high performance operating mode, you need principal and mirror server. Okay, like high safety mode, you just need the two servers to set up the database mirroring session for this mode, high performance mode. Okay, but the difference is, in the high performance mode, when application server writes the transaction into the principal database, okay, the principal database sends the log record to the mirror server. It doesn't wait for the acknowledgement from the mirror server. The moment it writes the records into the principal server log file, it commits the transaction to the application server immediately. Okay, so the log record will then asynchronously be shipped to the mirror server, and it returns to the mirror database. Okay, so it forms a send queue in the principal server. Okay, so basically when you set up this kind of mirroring session is, for example, you have a server in one data center and you have the mirror server in a different data center miles away, and there will be a network delay, traffic. It will take some time for the transactions to go back and forth. In that case, you decide, okay, synchronous operation not going to work, I need to work with asynchronous operations, that is high performance mode. Then you set up this mode, high performance mode. So basically application server connects to the principal server, works with principal server primarily. It forms a queue, send queue on the principal server, and it doesn't store any additional space. Basically it uses the log file for the send queue. Okay, and from there it copies over to the mirror server, and on the mirror server it first returns to the log file, the mirror server mirror database log file and forms a redo queue. Okay, and from the redo queue and it returns to the database file. Okay, so basically you will watch for the send queue and the redo queue in the high performance mode. Okay, in the high availability mode, basically the both servers should be similar, otherwise there is going to be delay. So in that case it is not very much required for the high availability mode. So basically in the while working with high performance mode, you will specifically look for these counters: send queue, how much send queue, how much data, how much log records I have in send queue that needs to be shipped out to the mirror server. Okay, in the mirror server, how much log records in the redo queue that needs to be applied to the database. This is a typical disaster recovery scenario. And if database fail, and if there is a problem with the principal server goes down, then again you have to do a forced failover on the mirror server. Okay, if both servers are up and running, you can still do a manual failover. Manual failover is possible in all the operating modes. Okay, but if principal server goes down in high safety and high performance mode, then you need to do a force failover on the mirror server and make the mirror server available for the application server, and the clients will be automatically redirected to the new principal server, because there will be failover partner option, additional specification in the connection string, so that they can automatically connect. But DBA has to come and do the force failover. Okay, so basically that's pretty much it. You don't need witness in high safety and high performance mode, so that is required only in high availability mode. Remember, you don't need witness server for high safety and high performance database mirroring sessions. Okay, but you can specify witness server for these two operating modes. But if you specify, it will create additional problems. Okay, the mirroring session is definitely not going to use the witness server. But if there is any, then it will create problem when the principal server fails and you need to bring the mirror server, and if witness server goes down, then it will create additional problems. Okay, so do not specify witness server in the high safety and high performance modes. Let us look into the mirroring requirements. The database and the data and log file path location should be same on both the servers, principal and mirror servers. Okay, the data and log file path location should be same, and even the collation master code page, they should be same. Master code page should be same on both the principal and mirror. Okay, and the database name should be same on principal and mirror. Okay, and you cannot mirror more than 10 databases on 32-bit server. You can on 64-bit server, but not recommended, because an instance can only have one endpoint, which could be a bottleneck if there are lots of databases in that instance. Okay, so better to limit to 10 max. And the next point is you cannot attach or detach. You have to use traditional backup and restore. Okay, so you have to take backup, full backup and log backup, and restore that on mirror server with no recovery. Okay, you simply cannot detach on the principal and attach on the copy the files, MDF and LDF files, and onto the mirror and attach. Not going to work that way. You cannot set up mirror that way. Okay, so The next requirement is the mirroring ports, 5124 or 5123, whatever you create, that should be open and functional. Okay, the ports for mirroring should be open. Okay, and the service accounts should be same for SQL and SQL Server agent on an instance. SQL and SQL agent on instance. Okay, but definitely you can set up the mirroring between the two domains, the principal on one domain and the mirror server on another domain. As long as those two domains can trust each other, then you can set up mirroring. But here what I'm talking about here, the 7th point, database service and agent service both should be running on the same account for the database mirroring. Okay, and database mirroring is not supported with either cross database transactions or distributed transactions. Okay, cross database transactions and distributed transactions. Okay, cross database transactions means, for example, you have one database that is mirrored to the mirror server and another database which you did not mirror. Okay, you have one mirror database and one non-mirror database, and you have transactions that are happening on both the databases. Okay, you are creating a transaction on both the databases. Okay, and while the transaction is processing and the principal server goes down and the database fails over to the mirror server, then there will be data inconsistency. Okay, there are possibilities that data might not be consistent if you are using the mirror and non-mirror database in a transaction. So cross database transactions is not permitted, and even the distributed transactions. For example, you have MSDDC service on principal server and you don't have the MSDDC service running on the mirror server during the transaction failover time. Okay, that time the transaction might commit on the principal and might not commit on the mirror, and data might not be consistent. Okay, so that is the reason why these two type of transactions are not permitted in the mirroring. Okay, and SQL version should be same. Okay, even the build number, you can set up service pack 1 on principal and service pack 2 on mirror, but not the vice versa. Okay, so generally the build numbers SQL Server version should be same on principal and mirror. Okay, in Denali we have the next version after SQL Server 2008 R2. We have some advancements, like in 2008 R2 you can have only one mirror. Okay, for principal database you can have only one mirror database. In Denali you can have multiple, and you can read the mirror databases. You cannot read in the 2008 R2 mirroring. And you can create a group for failover. You can failover a group of servers to the onto the secondary. Okay, that is possible on Denali, not on 2008 R2.